Alright, so last time I did this round, someone called me, and since I don't want my friends' phone numbers being on the internet, I deleted it. So, here we the goes. From the section called Carl Gustav Jung. On my return to the West in that European world which is not like the South American one, and which after the 30 Years' War and the latest war of the Mahabharata has become like a body without a soul, I discovered that a noble white spirit had left Europe forever. I was told that the Grail had been taken by Parsifal to Albania, the ancient name for America, in a Templar ship with a fiery cross on its sail which revolved in the direction of return towards the oases of the South Pole. It's not oasis, Oases, oases. In Switzerland, beside a lake and a tower built by his own hands and whose construction had been determined by his dreams, I met the master of the Sphinx once more. He was carving a serpent on a rock while the waters of the lake lapped gently round his feet. He saw me arrive, exhausted, thirsty, and hungry, and invited me inside the tower to rest beside the fire while he prepared a meal for me. He offered me wine in a metal jug, and we talked all that night and the following day. I shall try to reproduce what he told me. Like you, I have lost the war. When I have left this life, a conspiracy will take place against me. It has always been so, because only poets will be able to understand me and continue my work. Sometimes I think that my fellow countrymen in this tiny land in which I am living in this turn of the wheel hate me, because I endanger their materialist, money-orientated way of life. I am not from this world. I am a Hyperborean, like you. I am a stranger in this world, in this land inhabited by the slaves of Atlantis. We lost this stage of the war of the Mahabharata. Because of this, my work will remain unfinished, and only poets, as I have said, will be able to understand it and carry it on. This homeland of mine, which was once Druidic, has remained a part of a Celtic confederation whose symbol is a clover with 4 leaves, because it lacks the 5th leaf, which is the Hyperborean polar spirit, the leaf of the number of destiny. It lost it, or it never had it. At least your homeland is the land of the morning star. But you are to blame, I broke in. Why didn't you risk your all? You were also a son of your mountainous country, lacking in sacred fury. I would have lost the little that I had salvaged in the battle, and now it will be the sons of my own flesh who will take part in the destruction of my work. A creator, a warrior, should not have children. That is true, I agreed. He poured out the wine. He put some large pots and the old metal frying pan into the cupboard. He greeted them and thanked them, talking to them as if they could understand him. After an almost religious silence, he looked at me fixedly. Well, Pilgrim, you have eaten and drunk. Do you wish to rest, or would you rather open your heart to me now, as you did long ago, when you were a king standing beside the Sphinx? I will talk to you, I replied. That is why I have come. Only you can answer me. Self. I have been asking myself the same question for an entire eternity, without obtaining an answer. Is there any reason to believe that anything survives death? The ego, for example. Can it die? If the ego dies, everything comes to an end with it. One day you explained to me that if the ego didn't exist, there would be no world. If a yogi, for example, had stripped himself of his ego in his profoundest state of samadhi, there would be no one there to know that he had been in samadhi. Or perhaps he didn't know that he was in samadhi because there is individuality without ego consciousness. It exists even in a flower, a stone. A stone is a stone because it has no ego consciousness, said Meister Eckhart. Without consciousness, without ego, there can be no individuation. There is persona but not personality, and the ego, this ego I feel myself to be, that only I am, how can it die? If it dies, the world comes to an end. Because how can I know that it will go on without me when I die? Only because people tell me so, because someone assures me it is so. While I am still here, I learn that the world goes on after me, and it is I who hears it. Always I. But if I really do die, then everything comes to an end, even the world, and I cannot escape from this. There is no possible way out for my ego. I can only think and feel the following when I disappear. If ever I do disappear, someone in eternity will again feel himself to be me exactly as I do now, and this I who feels like this will be I myself, just as if nothing had ceased to exist. Because in the immense interval after a whole eternity, if there is no I, this I, there is no consciousness. So that time also comes to an end. A moment, a sigh, a nothing, the disappearance and resurrection of the world. The sleep, the repose of the gods, the eternal return. I have come here to consult you, to talk to you, to think with you. How can I know that you really exist, that you are also I, that you feel yourself to be an I, your I? Only because I hear you tell me so, and it could well be a projection of myself or a splitting of myself in two, like all the rest. Words that I am saying to myself, questions and answers that I am putting to myself, a monologue in front of a mirror in which I am looking at myself. At the end of his dramatic life, Nietzsche, who had discovered this, so they tell me, and he became all people in one, at one and the same time, succeeding in escaping from the circle into madness. But did he really escape? He passed his old hands across his forehead. This has been my obsessive melody, too. The anguish of this mental brick wall, this narrow path which seems to leave us without a way out, without an answer, because truly there is none, you know? There is none. The only thing I can confirm to you is that I, too, feel myself to be me. A poor answer, because you don't believe me. You cannot possibly believe me. From your point of view, only you feel yourself to be me. This is how it is for you, even when I can assure you that it is the same for me, too. With your me, you will never be able to understand it. Separate forever. There is no way out of this, no answer. That is to say, the answer is, there is no way out, no answer. The way does not lie in renunciation of the ego, crucifixion of the ego, but in its supreme affirmation, combining it with an entelechy, E-N-T-E-L-E-C-H-Y, with the persona which existed before the ego, and which felt itself to be so old, so ancient, so filled with dignity, combining them in the absolute personality. What is the ego? Where was it before it entered a child's body? I asked. He answered me with another question. Perhaps it was the guardian angel, which the child later loses when the ego enters his body, or perhaps the guardian angel is that wise man who goes away when the ego enters the child's body and waits for your return. What is this you? Is there perhaps a third, or is the ego a point, a fold in the mantle of the persona, of the monad, of which only a tiny part can enter a body made of dense matter? Have you ever considered the possibility that the technocrats of the science of Kali Yuga managed to give an ego to their electronic brains, their robots, merely by moving a lever? Mightn't something similar have happened in the case of the human being? Will the ego survive when the robot is destroyed? Will the same ego be reproduced in other machines? This horrifying possibility is for me a further proof that consciousness is an archetype which forges a path through the universes, seeking to give itself a shape, and that it uses the human being in the same way as it would use the machine. I have never managed to say this openly, that the ego is an archetype. I understand, I said. They are only words, I know. New receptacles for an old wine. Let us return to the point from which we have strayed, combining the ego and the persona. There lies the gate through which one can enter and leave Ultima Thule. I have called it individuation, combining the ego with the self, changing the accent of individuality, moving it from the rational consciousness closer to the ocean of the unconscious, without ceasing to be conscious, but with a different type of consciousness, bringing light as far as possible into the darkness, moving from the yellow sun of rational consciousness to the black sun of individuation and the center that appears there, which is created, invented, to which the ascent of individuality has now moved, is the self, a circle whose circumference is everywhere and whose center is nowhere, and which emits a ray of green light, the light of Gnosis. Meister Eckhart's tiny spark which navigates in a ghost ship on and beneath the surface of the sea of the unconscious, with all its lights on, the fulfillment of the totality of a being, the unus mundus. This is individuation, giving a face to the self, to the guardian angel, the monad, making the creator conscious. And do you know where I found the concept of the self I used in order to allude to this mystery? In the greatest psychologist of all time, in Nietzsche, your wounded king, who was the first to discover it using the German word Selbst. What is the self? I asked. It is an island of glass lost in the middle of an ocean, a city hidden in the depths of a mountain, an oasis of warm water in the midst of the ices. It is the continent of the Golden Age, a castle surrounded by flames, in which the beloved lies asleep. Yes, because once there was a king, a queen, a sleeping beauty in a wood, and eternal love. Only poets will be able to understand me. Anima animus. Eros was united with his beloved inside the great Orphic cosmic egg, Phanes, Erkapaios. Eros unites, but Phobos, fear, hatred, nothing is closer to love than hatred, disunites, leads to separation, breaks the cosmic egg, so as to acquire consciousness, individuality, so as to be able one day to give a face to the cosmic egg. Complete fusion, losing oneself in one's opposite, in the loved one, in an effort to return to the original androgynous, is not a good thing. It goes against individuation, the immortality of the persona and resurrection, which is differentiation, the individuation of both partners, so that he and she can come together again, separated but in another way, united forever, resurrected. If you have the great good fortune to meet your beloved again, the her of him, in one of the turns of your wheel, don't make the mistake of marrying her. You would both be destroyed. What you must do is help her to die outside you. Love her as if you were committing a crime. The beloved must die in order to return to life as an immortal, placing her eternity in your hands. This is the true her, who leads the warrior to heaven, who is not an illusion, who does not drag him down into hell, profaning him, castrating his magic virility, turning man into woman. She is not the devouring mother, the widow who is not the widow, because she does not resign herself to her widowhood and so castrates her son. Parsifal and Alexander had to employ Phobos, or hatred, in order to escape from the great mother, the little widow, so as to achieve the Grail, the stone of change, which the Greeks called zoenon, totality. Das ewig weibliche zieht uns hinan, as Goethe said, the eternal feminine leads us to heaven. Because the impulse which drives you to fulfill the ultimate mystery, which I have called individuation, projecting the ego into the persona, into the monad, into the self, giving a face to the gods. Lightening. That's an interesting choice of words. Lighting the darkness of the Creator is none other than love. Only love can make you cross the deep chasm, the drawbridge that separates your ego from the castle in which your beloved lies asleep, jumping into the abyss. It is, in effect, a change, a miracle. It is a non-existent flower, the self. Fall into this flower, and you will find the face of your beloved there. This love, this impulse, is an icy, red-green fire which consumes everything and projects you to heaven, loving beyond life and death for all eternity. This love makes you immortal. This face, this fire of love, which the troubadours and minnesingers called Volre Salde, Isolde, I have called anima in the man and animus in the woman. How long we go for? It's not that long, okay. Amor. It has been said that the man who loves God needs 7 incarnations in order to enter nirvana and liberate himself, and that the man who hates him needs only 3.